This WQED Education podcast is made possible by the Ready to Learn Initiative, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and listeners like you. Thank you.
My name is Jen Ford, and welcome to the Wonderful World of Work podcast. Have you ever seen a TV show or movie that takes place in a courtroom? If so, you've probably noticed the actors and actresses who play the role of lawyers. Lawyers are people who help those who need to go to court by arguing their case and presenting facts to the jury. But did you know that lawyers need help to do their jobs and win their cases? These people are called paralegals. A paralegal works for a lawyer and does many things to help them prepare for court, such as investigating facts, doing research, organizing information, and writing reports. This episode's special guest is Carrie Cessna, a National Association of Legal Assistants certified paralegal with nearly 10 years of experience in the paralegal profession. Carrie is here to share with us her experiences in working in law through a career as a paralegal. Welcome, Carrie, and thank you so much for joining us. Tell me about your career as a paralegal. What drew you to this particular career?
Absolutely. I completed my bachelor's degree in English and started working as an office manager. And at that time, I realized that I wanted to pursue a new challenge. I had always loved reading and writing, and I had a fondness for learning. And I had been interested in attending law school, but I was unsure if I was ready to commit the time and funds necessary for a legal and law school career. Paralegal school, I thought, was the next best option because it exposed me to a career in law that was more accessible, but provided me with much of the same education and skill development. I was really excited to pursue a career that would allow me to be in a supporting role because I really enjoy helping other people, and much of a paralegal career is helping. And I also was excited to be able to use my reading and writing skills because paralegals read and write a lot.
So it sounds like you went into paralegal just not quite sure what you were doing, and you fell into something that was really great. And you did mention the schooling that you've gone through to get you to where you are today. But is there any other types of training or schooling that can be needed to become a paralegal?
Yes, definitely. So there are many different types of paralegal training programs. Some of the, we'll call them more reputable programs, are certified by the ABA, which is the American Bar Association. And the ABA is a group of legal professionals who, among other things, advocate for legal professions. So being certified by the ABA is considered the mark of a good program, but ultimately it depends on the type of education that's desired and what the ultimate goal is. So, for example, there are associate degree programs, certificate programs, programs that require an initial 4-year degree, like mine did, and so on. But there is a program to best fit any need. There is no widely accepted requirement to be a paralegal, so a lot of paralegals have gotten into the career simply through training. The National Association of Legal Assistants and the National Federation of Paralegal Associations are nationally recognized certifying bodies that offer extensive examinations for professional certifications. So some people choose to sit for these examinations, some people don't. You don't have to. I happened to sit for mine this past fall and received this certified paralegal certification last year. And the CP certification is an endorsement from a professional organization that I have the training and knowledge base to practice and succeed in the field.
So that probably opens a lot more doors for you and gives you many different directions that you can take your paralegal expertise in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that some employers like to see. It's definitely not necessary, but it's something that I considered a personal achievement and a professional achievement.
And it gives you that edge.
It does.
That's really awesome that you've taken it that far. So what environments, aside from just a traditional law firm, can a paralegal work in?
So the really cool thing about being a paralegal is that paralegals can work anywhere that has a legal department. So that means pretty much anywhere. Paralegals tend to have a pretty vast set of skills that are easily adaptable to different workplaces. So paralegals can work for big companies, small companies, in healthcare, in tech, like I do, and of course, for law firms. If there are lawyers, chances are good there are paralegals. The paralegal skills are always easily transferable. So people who start out in paralegal roles sometimes move on to other careers as well. For example, if I wanted to take my career in a different direction, contract management might be something that I could focus on in the future. I have seen folks who start out in administrative roles and then become paralegals. So it's a very flexible career.
So, a law firm or even just any company that has a legal department opens a wide variety of opportunities for people who are interested in law but aren't quite sure what direction they want to go in.
Definitely. And there are a lot of different paralegal careers within those different workplaces as well. For example, I used to work in a big law firm. And when I worked there, I worked in litigation. After I moved on from there, I worked for an energy company and I worked in more transactional type law. So paralegals are able to take those skills that they have learned initially or over the course of their career and transfer them across a wide variety of workplaces and different career types.
Very cool. So, you can almost get into any other career pathway or field just by being in that legal department and helping them with that aspect of the business.
It's definitely a great stepping stone.
What are some important skills that you possess that you feel have helped you to become successful in your career as a paralegal?
Yeah, organization and critical thinking are crucial skills for paralegals. The paralegal role is largely a support role, so it's very important to be organized. For instance, I am responsible for managing and maintaining files for my company. So I need to be able to locate and produce documents, sometimes really quickly, so I have to make sure I have everything in order. Paralegals are often also expected to keep other people in order as well. So if I'm not organized, then my team isn't going to be organized. And by making sure that I am organized, I can make sure that our work runs smoothly. Critical thinking is part of my daily job. I often have to make decisions independently with limited information and with little time. Being able to examine information and turn that into a work product or make a decision based on that information is super important. Critical thinking also plays a big role in research, which paralegals do a ton of. We have the ability to read carefully, understand what we are reading, and ultimately decide how that information applies to our situation.
So, even though you work as a part of a team, it seems like a lot of times you're making a lot of independent decisions that will help your team to progress or to move forward or to accomplish a goal that you have.
That's definitely true. Paralegals work autonomously a lot and also as part of a team a lot. And a lot of it depends on what type of work environment you're in. I am lucky to be part of a team that needs my support, but also allows me to work freely on my own.
I think that's important to some people to be able to be part of a team, but also have that time on your own as well to do the things that you like to do the way you are able to do them and to really let your skill set shine through in that way.
Definitely. And it's helped me learn and grow a lot by being able to work independently.
I hear you mentioning a couple of times throughout your different answers that you've learned a lot as you've grown in your career. You learned a lot in your programs and as you prepared to sit for all these different board certifications. But how is being committed to being a lifelong learner an important aspect of your career?
Yeah, I think that lifelong learning is one of the most important aspects of not only my career, but any career, because you're always learning something new every day. And an inability or unwillingness to learn and adapt would be detrimental. And I think that applies to paralegals, attorneys, whoever. And the law is always changing. So I'm always having to take in new information and figure out how or why it matters. Also, working in a big company comes with learning a lot of processes and learning how to work with a lot of people and personalities. It's important to be flexible and willing to adapt and change. And this is all part of the learning process. It continues no matter how long you have been in a career or how old you are. The ability to keep learning throughout life makes everything a lot easier. A lot of my career at this point is repetition, and anything someone does repeatedly tends to be easier over time. But in order to get to this point, I had to learn a lot of new information at once and just continue to practice those things until it became second nature. I think learning how to manage those things is part of being a lifelong learner too. Sometimes it's not so much about learning in a conventional sense, but more learning how to adapt and grow.
So being a lifelong learner not only includes actually learning from books, it includes learning from those around you, learning how to highlight your best qualities, and learning how to grow as you progress in your career.
I think so. And I think a lot of it has to do with flexibility as well. In any career, you have to be flexible in order to continue growing that career over time because things are always changing. Your workplace might change, your boss might change, what you do on a day-to-day basis might change. So the ability to learn and grow is super important.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Carrie, for joining us today and talking about your career as a paralegal. We really appreciate your time and your professionalism.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am Carrie Cessna, and I am a lifelong learner.
Are you ready for our Growth Mindset Challenge of the Week? This episode, we talked about the importance of being a lifelong learner. What is one thing that you have been meaning to learn more about? Ask your grown-ups what they know on this topic and create a graphic organizer or list showing the new things that you have learned. Then, with your grown-ups' help, do some research. Use books, the internet, or your local library to expand your learning on this new and exciting topic. Hey kids, we hope you enjoyed learning about today's exciting career. Tune in next time to learn about a new job to consider from the wonderful world of work. Parents and caregivers, it's time now to talk to our panel of educators about important soft skills that you can help your child to develop, making both their today and tomorrow brighter. Today's panelists include Leanne Kruger, kindergarten teacher in the Pittsburgh Public School District, Elaine Volpe, head of youth services at the Bethel Park Public Library, and Dominique Branson, a current PhD student and college professor. Let's see what our panelists have to share with us. Paralegals are a prime example of how important it is to be a lifelong learner. How can we instill a love of learning in children?
I think as the grown-ups in the lives of children, it's important for us to make their learning fun and meaningful and accessible for all, and just to keep it interesting so that they want to learn and want to stay invested in it.
Just one thing I would add to that, building off of what you said, is to take notice of the things that they're interested in and try to encourage them to dive deeper into those things that you notice they're interested in. I know my son, he loves the episode that has fire trucks. So we've been trying to show him more things that have to do with fire trucks to encourage him to learn more. So just keeping an eye out for the things they're interested in.
Sure. And I think sometimes, they think they always associate learning with school, and some of the things they learn about in school they love, and some of the things they learn about in school they don't love. It's because we all have our own preferences and interests. And so sometimes learning sounds like a lot of work. But if you show them what to learn about, this is something that interests you, let's look more about this. I think it shows them that it can be fun to learn when you kind of self-guide that learning.
To that point, once you find out what it is that they love and they want to learn more about, bring them to your local public library, right? Of course, I'm going to say that, but that's so important that there's books on any topic that you could think of, and a wide variety of books and resources that will allow them to, expand that interest and learn more about it. And also, I wanted to say that children learn through play too, right? So like you said, Jen, it's not just about school. Yes, we go to school to learn, but children learn through play. So just allowing plenty of opportunities for them to have that open-ended play. In today's world, I feel like a lot of families, and it's just the way it is today, but a lot of families are overscheduled, right? They come home from work, they got to get a quick meal in, then it's off to soccer practice or CCD or whatever it may be. And there's not always that time left for play, which is so very important. So just carving out time for kids to play, I think, is huge.
I think that's a great point. And you're right. We do tend to be overscheduled. As you mentioned soccer practice, I'm like, well, I rushed from soccer practice today. You're right. That time to play is important. And also connecting with your children in that play. I know sometimes can feel kind of strange as an adult, when you're trying to talk with the figurines with your kiddo too. But, as much as you can, getting down on their level and trying to connect through play with them, I think is important. That's a great point. Carrie talked about needing excellent organization and critical thinking skills for her job. What are some ways in which you use those skills in your career or in your life?
I would say, as a kindergarten teacher, there's a lot of topics I need to address every day with my students. So, staying organized and having clear plans for myself to make sure that I'm able to get to the things that I need to get throughout the day are really important. And critical thinking, as I'm teaching with the students, I have to be quick on my feet or to understand, oh, they didn't understand that, or that needs a little bit more time, or this student needs a little one-on-one. So just being able to take all that information in and figuring out the best way to use it is really important for me.
I think I would just add to that that when I'm teaching my students, even though they're college students, I think this also applies to younger students. When they ask questions, I will often ask questions back. So even on my end, requires some critical thinking, but especially for my students to try to answer their own questions or to learn from their peers. Um, Instead of just answering their questions outright, I try to think about how to guide them to the answer that they're trying to figure out by asking more questions.
Sure.
But on both ends, student and for myself, as well as their peers in the classroom, it does take some critical thinking, especially on my feet, to ask the right questions to kind of guide them. And then they have those light bulb moments where they realize that they're learning, but that they also have this other knowledge that they're building on that they can use, tie into their critical thinking skills to then answer other questions.
I love that. So it's kind of like you're asking those questions of their questions, and they're taking themselves on a learning journey that they didn't really even know they had the pieces for, and you're just helping them bring it together. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What are some ways that teachers can help to build some of these soft skills like organization and critical thinking in their classrooms and also in community programming?
I can jump in on that. Something that I found that's really important is just helping students have confidence. I really like to just, when they ask me a question, I'll be very quick to say, "Oh, that's such a great question. I love that question." And even as they're asking the question, just making sure to look very engaged and interested in what they're saying so that they feel confident to uh, explore and grow in those other skills, like the critical thinking and the organizational skills. Just helping them have the confidence, telling them how smart they are constantly. Um, and even for college students, it shows on their faces when they feel that safety to explore and to think critically and to maybe not even have the right answer, but to feel like it's safe to explore. So I think this applies to younger students, boosting their confidence first.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you have done such a good job at building relationships with your students to get to that point. So I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in the rigor of education that sometimes we forget that we should put those relationships before the rigor. And any chance that we have to build confidence, to boost self-esteem, to just really pump those kids up, no matter what age they are, is really important
When
work
I
too.
like how you said that safety to explore. I am just thinking about my little kindergartners and if I have those systems for organization for them in place, they know where everything goes or they know where they need to go to get their pencil or their scissors or where to put their papers. When all of those things are taken care of, then they can feel safe enough to explore, the harder things or the projects and things like that once those sort of basic organizational things are in place.
Sure, that structure, I think as adults too, like we crave structure too because we do find that sense of safety in it because it's something that's expected that we know what comes next or we know, how things work in that environment. So I think that is an important part of building that sense of safety that Dominique talked about.
Yeah, I love everything that we've already mentioned. I think from the moment that children and families, the adults too, right, walk in our library doors, we want to immediately make them feel welcome and make them feel comfortable, right, and comfortable enough to ask those questions and then to explore on their own, and to give them that confidence that they have the skills to do that. So we're always here to help them, and that's part of our job, and we will guide them to that book or resource or whatever they're looking for. But we also teach them how to use the catalog so that they can come in next time and confidently look it up themselves, right? And find that book on their own. So I think that's just really important, making them welcome, comfortable, and giving them, like Dominique said, giving them that confidence. Yes, we want to be approachable. We want you to come and ask us anything, but we also want you to be able to figure out the answer for yourself.
Sure. So almost like teaching those procedures in the library or in the classroom really does give them the confidence to work on those soft skills, to use their critical thinking skills, and to better operate in those environments. So that is really important. We talked a little bit about classrooms in the community. What are some ways that parents can work on these skills with their children at home?
Ask questions to your kids, right? When they're playing and they're building that tower with blocks, ask them questions like, how high do you think it will go? What happens if we put this piece here? And just as they play, pose questions to them and, um, you know, get them thinking that way through play.
And even thinking about the Carrie, the paralegal, she talked a lot about all of the reading that she has to do, and so the attention to detail, she's got a lot to read through, but she has to be able to pull out what's important from that reading. So providing books of interest for the kids so that they will pay close attention to what the stories are. But even playing I Spy games, because then they have to really be looking around and looking for those tiny little details. It sounds so simple, but that is a great game for kids for those sorts of attention to detail activities. And just, lots of books of interest and things where the kids really have to stop and think about their answers.
Leanne, you said it's so simple. You brought up the I Spy game. It's so simple. I think it's really important to remind parents that there are so many great ways to build skills in your kids just through the normal everyday interactions that you have with them. And, you think that sometimes, a conversation that you have or a game that you play isn't really doing much for them, or do it like that's not going to be something they remember someday. But what we're doing is we're creating these little tiny building blocks to help them become the person that they're going to be. And so just any interaction that you have with your kid that you are, engaged in what they're interested in, and that you are, focused on the same thing together. I think that those are just great ways that we're instilling a whole host of not only career skills, but just everyday living skills in our children.
I think just to build off of what's already been said too, is to not always be in a hurry. And also not everything has to be structured. My son likes to stop in the middle of the sidewalk and just get really close and look at something that he sees on the ground. Even as I'm like, come on, we have to go. You have a class, thinking, oh, he's going to learn in that class. But really, if I were to just take a moment to stop and be with him in that moment as he's interested in something that I just probably stepped right over, then that becomes a learning opportunity he could get just as much out of as his class that we're heading up to. So I think not always being in a hurry, and also not making everything so structured, can also let our students or our children have opportunities to self-learn.
Sure. So just really taking advantage of those little teachable moments as they arise.
Yeah, not everything has to be planned. It might sneak up on you, and just grab that opportunity and run with it. Yeah.
And that very last thing you said, Dominique, like gave me chills. Like that was spot on, right? It's like bingo. And I didn't really say anything much more because like you kind of just said it all. But yeah, those teachable moments, that's like so important. So
For sure.
It's interesting having the perspective of having a 2-year-old and teaching college students, because
sure.
of how many similarities there
Yeah.
are between.
Yep.
And I mean that both ways. A 2-year-old acts like a college student, and a college student. So this has been wonderful to get to reflect on. Yeah.
We thank our panelists for participating in today's discussion and for sharing their insights on ways that we can continue guiding our children towards successful todays and tomorrows. Be sure to keep an eye out for the next installment of The Wonderful World of Work. I'm Jennifer Ford, and thank you for listening and learning with us today.
To get more information and resources about this week's episode, you can visit www.carrie wqed.org/edu.